We have decided, as it has been in the State Duma, Communist Party, the United Russia, LDPR, we can speak a lot about the domestic policy, but everything ends bad when we make mistakes in the foreign policy. 100 years ago, Russia was top-notch. It was a top country. Everything it was okay until the summer of 1914. We were engaged into the war, and you know how everything ended up. And the Soviet Union up to 1940, it was a top-notch country. You know how it ended up, and the outcome is that for 1,000 years, Russia is having a defensive policy. I'm not going back into 1,000 years. Let's, for example, Napoleon. He's waging war in Lithuania, and the young Tsar, he has a bad mindset. He had in plans to capture the whole of Russia and burn Russia, and in 1941 everything was absolutely clear that we were going to have war with Germany. But why we didn't have the order to defeat the Germans on the 20th of June? This is their being scared and inability. This comes at a very high price. And the second point, Russia was prosperous. It had prosperity. Russia can be prosperous even within the frameworks of empire. Any republic, Soviet, Federative and Democratic Republic, it's very bad for Russia, you know. It's destructive. Until we won't define our forms, even raise the question about reviving the empire for example, Spain has revived the monarchy. You understand that the format of development. It's very simple example. For example, I'm feeling very hot here in Russia. We've got to Arkhangelsk, to Vorkuta, to Siberia. I'm feeling very bad. I've got to go where my organism, where I feel better. And Russia feels very bad within the format of the people's friendship. It's very doing badly, you know, and socialism is bad at the same time. We can't do that way. We shouldn't go. We've got another other country, you know. We've got to start the first, and Stalin had a plan to start earlier the war and defeat Germans in Poland. And the generals proposed to defeat Napoleon in Poland. And we've got the waves. We can't have the development within the framework of a republic. We can't go to the democratic way as the elections, parties and professional unions, elections in fall and in spring. We don't need any elections. How do you know that anybody's gonna elect somebody? If during the Soviet times in the labor collective everybody knows that he was, and nobody knows where the candidate to the presidency comes, because the election is a profanity just invented in America. They've got two parties, Republicans and Democrat. But before the presidential run, they just, they make the kind of a spectacle. This is a theatricalized play. If we have a militarized economy, for example, we are going to be more prosperous if we we bring to the western borders, beyond Urals, even in the south. We've got to bring to the south millions, 2 millions of army, because they don't have to be scared. We've got to use their stick policy. For 10 decades, we put all our budget to Cuba, somewhere else, and now and they are slapping into our face with our own money. The West is doing like that. We have got to block flowing the money to the West. And nowadays we are trying to build some factories, militarized economy and mobilized, and a crackdown and we have got to make a very strong propaganda. And I said something, a phrase, I said something that when the Finland's budgets went up for the military expenditures, that we are gonna just destroy them, so that our tanks move to the Kiev and they will reach up to the Brussels, and within 24 hours will defeat you. You will capture the whole. Their missile defenses are very weak. They are of no threat to us. We've got to a second Barbarossa plan is in effect, and we are not waiting for the 22nd of June. We've got to start the war and defeat everybody on the 20th of June. And it's up to the chief of staff to make the decision. We've got to understand that everybody is just laughing at Russia. And, they prohibit speaking Russia. In Estonia, for example, they kill Russians. And you've got to see that we are just forcing them outside. We'll be annihilating them and birthhouses, and you'll be putting some humanitarian aid from Russia. Do you think that the Tsar would have sent to Serbia humanitarian aid? He would have sent the army there. It was a mistake. Even not the Bolshevik, our army would have been in 1918 in Berlin, in the modern Russia. And nowadays Russia, we're taking right steps, starting the first. But where do we go, And one more mistake that Russia is making. We have no friends in the West. We've got to go to the South with the peace as allies. And a single decision Lenin has made. The first treaties with Afghanistan, Turkey and Iran. In 2001, Mr. Putin, when the New York attacks occurred, you asked the party leaders, gathered them, you asked, what are we gonna do? Everybody said that you've got to subjugate to Bush. I told you to demonstrate solidarity with the Muslim world, that nobody's gonna bomb you, that Rana is shoulder to shoulder with you. And nowadays we're just resorting to Egypt, Erdogan and Turkey, and for 14 years we have lost in vain. Who are those advisors in the Foreign Office? Chubais came there, the presidential administration advisor, and I asked him to strike a treaty with Iran, and he asked that they were going to make a good treaty with the United States, but he's a foe to the Russian government. It's very bad. And Gaida's fund is a ruinous fund. Yeltsin, talking about Yeltsin, he was a very bad president. He just sold out all the country. He gave it away, and now we erect monuments to Mr. Yeltsin. We can't live under the flag, white, red and blue. This is a treacherous flag for Russia. We've got to change that for red, black and gold. We've got to change the name of as the presidency. We've got to change the name of your president as the Emperor of Vladimir I. It would have sounded even better, and everybody's going to protect and respect us. And the national anthem is absolutely wrong. It has the lines has to be changed, and we've got to bring back the Tsarist national anthem. It was the most correct, because during that time Russian army used to make breakthroughs and come out victorious in Afghanistan. We went with the army, and we hadn't to go without invade Afghanistan. But when we entered Afghanistan, we hadn't to leave Afghanistan and go out. It was absolutely wrong. We had to stay there for a long time. When they shoot down with the helicopters, you have to dig down into the earth and stay there for a long time. No, Najibullah, we would have stayed in Afghanistan up to now, Nowadays we've got to make that as in Ukraine, and we have the militarized weapons that just would be able to raise the whole of the streets, the whole of the weaponized system of the Ukraine. Why shouldn't we just try and conduct the what? Do you think that the American army is waging war, privatized military, and people are waging war? We've got to take prisoners out and no step back to put them in the order, and they would erase everything. They would leave no no stone unturned. Those prisoners in Russian from Russia, they would do every job. We've got to make south and to make our steps into south and not the west. And Poland is making very aggressive against Russia, Ukraine. Do you think we defeated Napoleon? We would have defeated Napoleon down there and stayed in France. This has to be the policy which had conducted the Soviet Union. I'm not taking anything out of the blue. I take everything better from the Tsarist Russia and Soviet Russia. No cannon would shoot until the Russian Tsar would give this agreement. When there has been a theatricalized play in France, Tsar said that I will send there 1,000 viewers. Do you want that? And the play was withdrawn from the theater. And when Tsar said that all the funds should be put to the war, he banged the table, and British ambassador was reported about that, and the British just gave way to move. The Western people have to be so much afraid, so much scared. We've got another foreign minister. He has to be wage propaganda. They work well, but they are effective. But we've got quite another people with another mindset, so that everybody make scared. Everybody has to tremble, and we've got to welcome the Muslim world. And we could have dealt with Saddam Hussein and Iran in 2000. You will recognize the Taliban government, but 15 years later it was absolutely wrong. But if you did that 15 years ago, if you didn't topple them, we wouldn't have the kind of the drugs, and they don't. Nobody knows wants Afghanistan, and the East is engulfed in fire. We've got to forget about the Poland, and there are a lot of fighting giants, and in case of a massive war, we can't guarantee that you survive. Everything will be erased from the face of the earth. It's very important, the build-up of the country. It has to develop in a natural way. We used to fight with the propaganda of homosexualism among the kids. When are we gonna combat the wrong propaganda in our country? The Tsar wouldn't have tolerated this. The economic and culture and something like that, everything is very wrong. And nowadays they abuse us. Everybody abuses us. And during the Tsarist times, nobody would have dared to kill Russians because they respected and loved us. We've got to make the military bases so that everything would be buzzing everywhere. And we've got to put the paratroopers and drive the tanks, military jets, so that everybody feel tremble, that our commanders are unable to topple with their bayonets others' military technique and hardware. Why didn't you get up, LDP or deputies? Are you so much lazy or tired? Get up onto your feet, because I'm making a speech. They have raised. All the time you're afraid, you know. What's happening here? You have come here and they are scared that everything's going to be said, something's going to be said different. It's absolutely wrong, you know. I'm absolutely sure that your deputies won't flee away, and I am absolutely sure that we are making a live broadcast. Everything Mr. Zhirinovsky, LDPR leader, has said is his personal opinion, and it sometimes rise in wrong coincidence with Russia's official policy. You know, he is making a very bright speech, I have to admit.